Welcome, everyone. It's great to have our panelists here, our candidates, as well as everyone who has joined us. We'll be recording this meeting. We just heard that announcement, and my name is Suzanne Blier, and I'm president of the Cambridge Citizens Coalition. And I'm joined today by Jana Odette, our clerk and treasurer, who's also a dedicated personal and community organizer, as well as Kaya Patterson, who's a university student here. And you can find out more information on the endorsees that we have brought together for this event at cambridgecitizens.org. And you can access their email accounts and their websites through that particular means. Some of you have asked about how to register to vote, which is terrific, and thank you. You can simply go to vote.gov and find out there, and you can do mail-in ballots, among other things. A note on timing. The question part of this forum will run to about 7 p.m. and is divided into 4 parts, followed by 2 minutes for each of the candidates to explain why you should vote for them. This is followed then by a half hour of a Q&A section, and many of you have been emailing us questions earlier, and you can type others in the chat if you would like. So the format will be first the candidates for City Council for 3 questions, the candidates for School Committee for 3 questions, back to the City Council candidates, and then finally with the School Committee candidates, and then each person gets 2 minutes to elaborate on why you should vote for them. So let's get started, and we welcome everyone here in the city and elsewhere, including these wonderful candidates for City Council and School Committee. And I'm going to begin by introducing all the candidates, and first the City Council candidates. Elizabeth Bisio, a Regis University graduate and former ER nurse, turned product leader and startup founder, brings management skills and renter's perspective in Cambridge Crossing. John Hanratty, with an MBA and an MS in data science, is a Neighborhood 9 leader, clean energy advocate, and an active voice in transportation issues. Peter Sue is a physician with an MD, MPH, and MS, and an instructor at Harvard Medical School. He emphasizes health, safety, fact-based decision-making in housing, transit, and the environment. Zion Sharon, a Cornell graduate and renter in the Port, offered hands-on experience in land surveying and nonprofit work with an interest in transparent, balanced governance. Louise Venden holds an MS in real estate finance, is a housing consultant, former Provincetown Select Board member, and East Cambridge resident running as a write-in. Ayesha Wilson, an incumbent city councilor trained as a social worker with an MSW from Wheelock College, has served on the school committee and NAACP championing affordable housing and equity issues. Kathy Zusi, an incumbent counselor with an MAT from Simmons College and an MA in Museum Studies from Cooperstown, is a Cambridgeport civic leader and preservation advocate, active in Magazine Beach and restoration efforts. Turning now to the school committee candidates. Richard Harding, an incumbent and Fitchburg State graduate from the Port, is vice chair of the school committee, a youth advocate and strong supporter of results-oriented education. Jane Hershey, a University of Maine graduate and founder of City Sprouts, brings decades of experience in STEM-focused nature-based education and community innovation. Elizabeth Hudson, an incumbent, is a Yale-trained cognitive scientist with a PhD in biotech, CTO, is also a Navy Reserve lieutenant who emphasizes transparency and improves student success in areas like algebra. Jia-Jing Lee, born in Malaysia with a PhD in medical science from the Karolinska Institute, is a bilingual scientist and advocate for academic excellence and nurturing inclusive schools. So moderator assignments. Jana Odette will ask the City Council candidate questions, and Kaya Patterson will ask the school committee candidate questions. If you have questions at the end for the Q&A, please put them in the chat. And let's get started. Jana.
Hi, guys. Thank you very much for being here, everyone in the audience, as well as the city councilors and the candidates for school committee candidates both. So part one, this is, the first question is going to be on the climate and environment. You will have 1.5 minutes each, so 90 seconds each. And because we just started with Elizabeth Bicio, we're going to go starting with Mr. Hanratty, John Hanratty. So John, if you could please unmute yourself. And in fact, maybe for this round, just so that I don't have to do that, you can think about unmuting yourself. Okay, so I'm going to read the question now. Ready? And this is for all of the city councilor candidates. Provide one example of a policy you would support to make Cambridge greener and more sustainable. I'm going to repeat that question. Provide one example of a policy you'd support to make Cambridge greener and more sustainable. John Hanratty.
Hi, thanks. Yes, so I have some background in clean energy and sustainability. I think that what we've done is set up a set of policies that claim to be actually greener, but they're not really as green as they say. So, for instance, bike lanes cause people to drive around more because they can't find parking spots, etc. I think that what I'd like to see is a more unified idea of what we're doing and to really take a realistic view at what we're trying to accomplish as far as ecology, environment. So yes, I think one policy I'd like to see is to firm up our tree canopy policy right now. We really have been cutting down trees willy-nilly and adding more cement, more heat sinks, more heat producing issues there. So I think that plus there has been some work and we need to do more work on protecting the more vulnerable people when we do have higher temperatures. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanratty. All right, now I'd like to go on to Mr. Sue, Peter Sue. I'm asking you to unmute.
Howdy. So,
provide
yes,
one example.
so the I think in general the butyl I would support to answer this question, to make Cambridge more greener and more sustainable in the long run. You know, things I would say I would change in order to make Cambridge greener and more sustainable is, number one, I think we all know about the multi-family housing zoning changes. I think that, you know, any future buildings greater than 3 stories should require some kind of review, some kind of review board. You know, into this is to you know, to basically make sure that these new housing projects, they don't say, number one, block solar panels and of neighbors, and also not cutting down excessive trees. That aspects I would agree with John. I think we you know, we don't want to cut down trees excessively, especially the big ones. So those would be the things I would definitely support in terms of changes in the future. And I would also add that new project that does not add 2+ new units should not be allowed to incorporate the new upzoning criteria. That is also, I think that also has to do with sustainability and green space.
Thank you, Mr. Sue. Thank you, Peter Sue. And now Zion Sharon.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very important that we're caring about our environment. I think we do need to be prioritizing green spaces, but in terms of direct policies that I would like to see, I would like to see more charging ports. A lot of cars are wanting to go electric. A lot of people would love to have electric cars. And when I've been out door knocking, I see a lot of people who have personal driveways put in charging stations. That said, not everyone has the ability to park in a private driveway. And we want to make sure that we're having charging ports directly on the street so that people that don't have private driveways are still able to buy electric cars and be able to drive electric. Another thing that I would like to see is policy created around solar panels. Right now, we have a lot of people that are making the right decision of putting solar panels on their roof for 2-3-story buildings. And then they're having proposals for their neighbors to have buildings that go 6 stories with very small offsets. And this is creating issues where there's potential shadows, and those shadows could really decrease the efficiency of those solar panels. So we want to make sure that we are incentivizing people to go electric, and then we are keeping to our word of being a green friendly city and making sure that those that make that decision that they are supported by the city and that the city isn't changing things last minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharon, Zion Sharon. Louise Venden.
Hello, thank you so much. I think the major thing we need to change is to issue speeding tickets. We need to cut down on the cars that travel through Cambridge, and especially at high speeds. We don't need to encourage cars to travel. We need to be very careful about mapping out bike lanes. But the fact is that we need to provide some additional shuttles so that people can get from the place that they live to the place that they work or their grocery store or whatever, and don't have to rely on Easy Ride, which doesn't have a reasonable schedule for a lot of people. And also, I think we need to think about enlisting solar farms, and for people who can't put solar panels on their homes, and actually most of the people in Cambridge cannot do that, to have other access for them to take advantage of solar power. But I think the biggest thing that is impacting our environment right now is the enormous amount of car travel that travels through our city, not only for environmental reasons, but also for public safety, both bikes and pedestrians and other cars. There simply is way too much car traffic, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Aisha Wilson.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here in community with you all. So some of what my colleagues have already mentioned, I could agree with and get behind, but most importantly, I think if we're not educating and being culturally competent within our education to make sure that members across our entire city are able to understand the impacts of the environment, how they can impact it from recycling to composting, et cetera. I mean, we have so many communities that we consider as environmental justice communities that it is critically important that folks are being educated in a culturally competent way so that they can engage in mitigating efforts to make sure that we become a more greener, cleaner Cambridge.
Thank you. And now Kathy Zuzi, please.
Thank you. I think you already know that Cambridge is a climate champion. We're lowering our building emissions, the greatest generator of greenhouse gases with our specialized stretch code, fossil fuel-free demonstration program, and mass large building energy reporting. We monitor and manage emissions and I've recently updated our net zero waste, net zero transportation action plan, all of those with the goal of achieving climate neutrality by 2050. My priorities in climate and in the environment are to continue to work towards decarbonizing buildings and transportation, to continue to encourage reuse and recycling, and to nurture and expand our green infrastructure. Specific policies might be, as many of you know, there's already has been a petition put before the council encouraging less hardscape in city parks and green spaces. I think that's a great idea. Again, building on what my colleagues have said, we need to encourage all modes of transportation to follow the rules of the road. And so I think we may need a citywide courtesy campaign encouraging people to be more considerate. And finally, we should consider the impact of demolitions. They release embodied carbons. So going forward, we need to be thinking about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy Zuzi. And last but not least, Elizabeth Bizio, please.
Hi, yeah, I would like to reiterate, I agree with a lot of the statements that have been made and would like to combine those as as in regards to solar, as a solar overlay ordinance is something I would advocate for if elected. And so that would put kind of into code the things that would ensure that we are maintaining solar access across the city. So that would look like when new buildings are going up, when they are doing the shadow studies, looking at where existing solar panels are being placed and the impact that that would have on the neighborhoods. I would also like to explore how, with the upzoning of some of these taller buildings, if there's any way for them to share kind of energy resources with the rest of the community, so that we can better utilize solar. Wind power is something I think that is highly underutilized in the city right now. I actually heard from a constituent that that is something that Harvard's doing a lot of on their parking garages. So I would like to see how we can explore better utilizing wind power as an additional option to provide more power to the city in a more sustainable way.
Very good. Thank you, Elizabeth. So now we are going on to our second question for the city councilor candidates. This is on transportation. And again, you will have 1.5 minutes each, and we're going to start with you, Peter Sue. Okay. The question is on bike lanes, buses, parking, and pedestrians. How do we make streets work for everyone? I'm going to repeat that once. On bike lanes, buses, parking, and pedestrians, how do we make streets work for everyone? Peter Sue. Right now you're muted. Hold on. Okay, let's start you again. Peter Sue.
I think that's obviously a complicated question. I just from door knocking, I know this is a pretty divided issue. I think my vision is that on roads that are wide enough, and with proper studies and master plans, I support having bike lanes. Because I think having bike lanes generally on roads that are wide enough is generally safer for cyclists, pedestrians, and car drivers. Now, I don't believe that we are gonna have a bike lane on every single Cambridge street. I don't think that's feasible. But when I say master plan, I also mean that taking parking spots into consideration, because we all know when we have bike lanes, we displace parking spots, and I think that is the source of some anger within our communities. And so I think in the future, when we instill these bike lanes on the roads that are wide enough, I think we do have to take those into consideration. Public transit wise, obviously we need more public transit options for our general public in Cambridge. So that would be my vision.
Thank you very much, Peter Sue. And now we can go to Zion. Sharon, please.
Yeah, so having streets that are safe for all is something I really care about and also accessible to all. I have a girlfriend, she uses a bike as her primary mode of transportation. I also recently, unfortunately, lost my mother to cancer, and towards the end of her life, she was very, a lot of mobility issues. She was at the end wheelchair bound, but for a long time before that needed a walker. And I saw firsthand how difficult it can be and how for some people, it's not just a luxury, it's really a need. So some of the things that I would like to see towards incorporating everyone is making intersections that are safer. Some of our intersections are very dangerous. We need separate lights for bikes. And then I'd also like it so that we can make it so the walk signal is extended if people need it. I've talked to people that are typically or older residents who have said that for them, they can't get across in that 30-second time and that they would like an ability to have an extended time. So that's something I'd like to evaluate. And then I'd also like to have the city really work on making sure we have van pickups for anyone who's wheelchair bound or has accessibility issues, where they pick you up directly at your home and bring you to your appointments. I think that we need to expand upon programs that really make sure that elderly can stay where they need to live and have that ability, especially as we slowly are losing parking due to bike lanes. Thank you.
Thank you, Zion Sharon. And now if we can please go on with Louise Venden.
Thank you. I've got several ideas about this, including making sure that when we displace parking, and even in those areas where there are small businesses, that we make sure that we have 15 and 30-minute parking meters. If someone is going into a small business on Cambridge Street or one of the other streets, they don't really need 2 hours of parking. We need to lower that parking threshold. And I think that we do need, as Peter said, we do need bike lanes on those streets that are wide enough, and we need lights, as Zion said, at intersections so that everybody knows they have to behave and they have to observe them. But beyond that, I think we need the Easy Ride bus is so huge, and we need smaller shuttle buses that make, and this is going to cost money, okay? Smaller shuttle buses that make more frequent stops that can go from, Cambridge Crossing to a medical center, to a grocery store, to places so that people don't even have to drive their car as much. We just don't have enough public transit access, and the T doesn't get us everywhere. So I think it's really important that we think more creatively, and these are not suggestions that will be not costly, but they are really important priorities.
Thank you, Louise Vanden. And now if we can go on to Aisha Wilson, please.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. This is an important one, and definitely want to echo the fact that this is quite a divisive conversation that we've been having about how to make the streets safe for everyone, because we can't do everything on every street. But I do believe that there is importance around imbalance. And when we are talking about making our intersections safe, that's where a lot of accidents happen, whether you are a cyclist, a driver, a walker, what have you. And so we definitely need to strengthen our intersections. And it is really important that we prioritize that this next cycle. And that is something that to me feels like low-hanging fruit that we should be doing, because we know at certain major intersections there are some hot spots that we already know, but yet have not addressed. And that to me feels like neglect on the city's end, because we have talked about this several times over. The citywide shuttles is something that I've championed along with several of my colleagues to really think about and look at where the importance is for making sure that there's citywide shuttles. We want to make sure that people are able to get around our city. We want to make sure that they're able to leave cars when they can, but also recognizing that that is not possible for all. And I also think that the free fare buses, so many of our buses like the number 1 or even our 83s, several of our buses should be fare free to make sure that it also is cost efficient for many of our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha Wilson. And now we have Kathy Susie.
We need a network of safe bike lanes. And we want to encourage people to use sustainable transportation modes if they can. We want to improve mass transit. And I, as the head of the Transportation Committee, have been advocating for interregional projects like creating a Fitchburg rail line stop at Alewife, replacing the North Station Draw 1 bridge, developing West Station and Alston. All those things, along with better bus service and better MBTA service, will include people to use mass transit. But we also need to accommodate those that must drive and must park, because there are a lot of them. There are 42,000 registered cars in Cambridge, and there have been for the last 5 years. So we need to assess parking needs and then accommodate those needs. In time, as we're a denser city and as we have better mass transit, I think people are more likely or fewer people will have cars. But for right now, a lot of people have cars, a lot of people need cars. So we need to sort of recognize that and accommodate that need and plan for it. I think there should be a formal process for reviewing intersections that are dangerous. As a city councilor, Aisha and I receive at least 3 to 5 requests for improvements of intersections each week, and we need to respond to those. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And now we have Elizabeth Bisio, please.
Thank you, Jana. So I also would like to see the focus shift from success meaning miles of bike lanes to intersection safety. It doesn't matter how many miles we have. If we have dangerous intersections, will still be fatalities for bikers. And that is, I think, the main objective of both sides. I would also like to see reforms to the parking permit process, as far as that being a way to protect parking for our residents that do need it. Not everybody can physically bike. And so we need to be conscientious of that when we are doing our reforms, and parking permits may be a way to do that, to make sure that residents can get access to home health aides and other essential services, so that we can help our young families and also older residents age in place. And then I would also like to see an expansion of the bus service. I live in East Cambridge and Cambridge Crossing, and we're very isolated because we have the green line, but we don't have access to the red line. And the bus goes to Harvard, but it's harder to get to other parts of the city. And so having an expansion of the bus network and frequency of the bus network would be, I think, hugely helpful in increasing transit access across the city.
Thank you, Elizabeth Bixio. And now finally, we will talk to Mr. Hanratty, John Hanratty.
Yeah, so I think, yes, is that this is an honorable goal, an important goal to make sure that the roads are safe for everybody, pedestrians, bikes, scooters, cars, and all of the other people that are using the road. So I think that the holistic view is what we need. Right now, it doesn't seem like we're really taking a holistic view of what the problem is. We have very limited road space and sidewalk space. How do we allocate it? It's not the same in every part of the city. So some parts of the city are business oriented, some are more residential oriented. Their parking requirements and their traffic requirements are quite different. We have to recognize that traffic originates from out of town. 100,000 people come into town on a daily basis to work and go at school, at our schools, our fire departments, and et cetera. They can't afford to live here. So we have to make that smooth. And right now they're coming by car and they need a car. I think that, we have to also, as we implement these solutions, measure. We have to decide what it is we're trying to accomplish, and actually take the data and measure it and then fix them. And finally, I think that we should have enforcement. We need to enforce the rules so everything's predictable. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So our last question is the last question of this round for the candidates for city council is about good governance. Sorry. And we again will have 1.5 minutes each. So that's 90 seconds each. And we're going to start with you, Zion. The question: can you suggest one possible policy to make city government more transparent and accountable? Let me repeat that, please. Can you suggest one possible policy to make city government more transparent and accountable? Zion Sharon, please.
Yeah, so I believe that transparency really goes hand in hand with accessibility. If you're not accessible to the residents, how are they going to know who to ask their questions to? Or if they're not getting a response, they're not going to know the information that they need. So I think that starting by having all the counselors really accessible, there's 9 counselors for the city at large. They can really serve as a representative compared to just a leader. So one of the ways that I do that personally is on my website, I have a Meet With Me section where people can book a call directly. They can book half-hour call, or if possible, I will also go to their home depending on the schedule. And that's something that I will be keeping through my entire candidacy, including as an incumbent, keep it going at least 40 weeks out of the year so that everyone's able to reach out to me. Additionally, one of the things that I will be doing is every time there is a vote, writing down on my blog what I voted for, why I voted for them, and being able to take questions directly. So I think that's the best way of really being accessible. It really helps with transparency, because then people can hear the answers that they want and also know exactly what's going on in the city, not just what's going on, but what you are doing about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Zion. And the next person we have is Louise, please.
Thank you. This is one of the things I'm particularly concerned about, and I think that any policy, and there have been some very ambitious policies passed by the current city council, any policy passed needs to have measures. It needs to have a requirement that whatever that policy is, there be a goal at the end of it, whether it's additional housing, whether it's enrolling children in pre-K, whether it's lowering the accidents and fatalities and injuries on our streets, whether it's improving our environmental protections. We need to have measures because everybody gets applause when they pass a big, important bill that looks like it's going to create something. And then at the end of the day, does it really happen? Accountability is very important. And in your job, my job, and most jobs, you have to be accountable. And I think that we need to make government accountable to us. I also think that the website right now is a nightmare. It is difficult. I call it a spider web. It's almost impossible to find things. And I'm pretty good at looking at and finding things on websites. Ours is awful. And there's no reason why the city of Cambridge should have such a terrible website. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise Venden. And now we go on to Aisha Wilson.
Thank you, Jana. Thank you for the question. This is definitely one that should feel easy, right, to actually tackle, and one that I'm not really sure why the struggle seems so, why it's so before us. But I think it is because we have so many points of view around what accountability and transparency actually looks like, because I do believe that it varies from person to person. But simply put, there's a couple of policy orders that did pass thus far this term. One, in making sure that the accessibility to viewing our city council meetings are expanded through at least our senior buildings. And I pushed that a step forward to be in our housing developments, so community rooms, et cetera. I do know that that has not taken action yet. And so that's something, just even through this call, that I wrote a little note to say we need to follow up on that. Our youth centers, et cetera, we want to make sure that the accessibility covers the gamut, and also making sure that we're meeting folks where they're at. But in addition to, making ourselves available and actually meeting with residents and talking to folks, I think that is a variable thing, because there's no actual mechanism and system as to who is responding. Is my time over?
You have 15
okay,
seconds.
sorry.
This means
I'm sorry. I saw this and I was like, okay, my
No.
apologies. But just making sure that we are, that we have a better system to making sure how folks actually respond to constituent questions, because 9 members can actually respond to you, and then you never know who got to what and what the actual end result is. So we need to have a better mechanism of that to help with transparency, accessibility, and accountability. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha Wilson. And now we're going to go to Kathy Zuzi.
Either. I'm thinking of 3 different ways. One is with our open portal. I mean, it's really extraordinary that we have this open portal, but we can certainly make it easier to navigate, especially my aide and I were trying to understand how many demolitions had actually occurred and how many permits had been advanced since the multifamily housing ordinance passed. And it was almost pretty impossible to navigate. So we certainly need to improve on our open portal. Know that there's a training on September 15th, and the city has recently done a survey asking people for their feedback about the open portal. So if you haven't responded to that, please do. We need to make sure that the city releases consistent numbers, and the council has asked for that. Relating to housing, we don't know how many affordable housing units have been created over the last couple of years. The numbers vary all the time. The numbers in the CDD's development log are contrary to ones presented at presentations. If we don't know the numbers, how can we plan for the future? So we need to do better there. With our budget, we need to track the overall cost of projects year after year. A lot of projects take 3 years, and in our annual budget book, which again is one award, it's a pretty amazing tool. It doesn't track the overall budget costs. We need to understand that. And finally, with community engagement, it's got to be authentic. We've got to be asking people for ideas and not just selling people on ideas that are already fully baked. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy Susie. And now Elizabeth, BCO, please.
Yeah, I think the city does do a lot of things internally for transparency and accountability as far as within departments, but it's not well communicated out to the community. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's causing a lot of disconnect between constituents and the council and city departments. So I think having very clear objectives in ways that are showing the impact to everyday residents and not just kind of how operationally within the city it should function is really important to connect those things as far as success metrics and what do we mean as far as was this project was successful in kind of terms that everybody can understand, and then are we measuring it? So once we put into affect a policy, like are we having regular assessments of are we kind of on track or off track? And if we're not, are we making changes and kind of getting into more of iteration cycles for when we're doing projects. So it's not just we have to wait 5 years to see if what the impact of what this was when it's already starting to affect residents. And so I would like to see more structure there within the council and the city departments as a way to kind of execute on that accountability.
Thank you, Elizabeth. BCO. And now I would like to go to Mr. Hanratty. John Hanratty, please.
Yeah, so this is a subject that's dear to my heart. I've spent years trying to influence the city government on various projects and issues, and find that it's very unsatisfying that you gather petitions together, you can send in emails, you can speak, you can talk to individual counselors, but it doesn't seem to move the dial. I think that really the process, and who counts? Is it the taxpayer? Is it the person that lives in the neighborhood? Is it special interest group? Who counts in this process? And that's not clear. I think number one thing is we have to get a new set of counselors into the council and change the councils as to be more community oriented. I agree with the idea that we have to have more clear goals on what we're trying to obtain. It's not clear what the upzoning, the neighborhood upzoning law was. Why are we doing that? We're going to get more housing, but is it going to be more affordable? Most people are for it because it will reduce costs. So we need to understand what we're going for. Are we going for what type of affordable housing there? What is the goal, and are we actually going to attain it?
Thank you, John Hanratty. And last but not least, Peter Stu.
I would echo most of what my colleagues have said already. I think the city website, I personally think that needs a major upgrade or improvement. A lot of people go to the city website for resources, for information. I am pretty tech okay. But the city website, I have issues navigating. I think, with our talents and potentials in Cambridge, we can really do a lot we can really upgrade a lot. And, even including AI in this process, so that folks can just say things to computer and then they can sort of kind of guide you to wherever that needs to be guided. I also think in terms of accountability, all requests to city officials, whether that's city workers, counselors, or school committee members, they should be tracked. And they should be the voters or citizens should be able to track their request. Like, have my request being open, have my request being read, and have, is there a reply? We all know sometimes, requests go into like spam and stuff like that. We understand that things happen, but there must be a way for requesters to track their feedbacks. And so I think for me, if I were elected, I would definitely, for transparency and accountability, set up extra office hours and proactively communicate with my voter base about any divisive issues.
Thank you very much. Peter Sue. And now I'd like to hand it over to Kaya Patterson so that we can have the school committee tell us a couple of their views. Thank you very much.
Okay, yes. So as we move on to the school committee questions, each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer. I'll read the question, repeat it, and then we'll go in the order listed. So our first question for the school committee is about school spending. The order will be Jane Hershey, Elizabeth Hudson, Jia-Jing Lee, and then Richard Harding. Jane Hershey, we'll begin with you. The question is, Cambridge spends more per student than any other district in Massachusetts. Do you believe these funds are being used effectively? And if not, where would you make changes? Again, Cambridge spends more per student than any other district in Massachusetts. Do you believe these funds are being used effectively? And if not, where would you make changes?
Yeah, thank you for that question. This is, as I've been canvassing and talking to people around the city, this is something that people think about a lot and bring up a lot when I ask them what's on their mind around the school committee. So for those who aren't aware, our FY 2026 CPS budget, Cambridge Public School budget, is 280,250,000 to be exact. And that's 28% of our city budget. That cost per pupil is almost 40,000 per pupil. But of course, that's not how a budget gets divided. So not every student is getting that amount. I work with budgets in my work as a nonprofit executive director, and I know that a budget is a reflection of an organization's vision and values. The budget's the boots on the ground roadmap for achieving that vision. So this question is, I think, also a question about, well, what are the values of that Cambridge Public Schools is reflecting in that budget? I'm not as familiar with this budget as the current sitting school committee members, but here's what a few things that I noticed when I first reading some questions that I have about it. So our biggest cost by far is our teachers, and that makes a lot of sense. We have a lot of teachers. I'm gonna run out of time here. We spend a lot on special education. We spend 14 million on transportation. And we spend, so some of the questions that I would have is our special education spending effectively serving all of our student body?
Jane Hershey, I'm gonna have to stop you. I'm so sorry.
Okay,
Okay,
that's all right.
thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Elizabeth Hudson?
Hi, everybody. I'm Elizabeth Hudson. And Jana and Kaya, if you could put up the image that I sent you. So I'll get started in the meantime. As Jane just mentioned, and as most people know, our schools represent about 1/3 of Cambridge municipal budget, almost 300 million of 991 million. And so whether you got kids in school or you're watching your tax bill or you want more or better services elsewhere, for you or your neighbors, you really care how well our programs perform. Last election, we talked about math. The district had removed algebra from 8th grade in the name of equity to cover for their failure to prepare the rest of the class for a course that's standard across the US. And this is actually a pattern, this time around we've addressed this, but this is a much more common pattern. So for decades, we've ignored the basics. We don't consistently hire and keep great leaders. We don't swiftly remove those who meet the bar, who don't meet the bar. We don't get kids to school on time. We let classrooms descend into chaos. And for all of these reasons, right, this is where you get this pattern that you see right here. So this is our district spending over the last 20 years from fiscal year 2007 to fiscal year 2026. Over the past 20 years, we now spend $100 million more every single year versus what we spent 20 years ago. And 50% of our students 20 years ago were working below grade level, and 50% of our students today are working below grade level. And that's because we don't spend the time focusing on the actual execution in classrooms. This is something that we really need to pay attention to. And as Jane mentioned, most of our money, all of that is spent on people. 90% is spent on people. And this is where we really need to focus on what is everybody doing every single day in the classroom.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Jia-Jing Lee?
Yes, so good news is we have the resources, we have the money, but the answer is not a simple yes or no. Research shows that the relationship between money and student performance is complex. It's not just something like that. Base funding matters a lot. When schools lack enough money for basics, qualified teachers, safe facilities, materials, reasonable class sizes, student performance clearly suffers. Adding resources here makes a big difference. But beyond the basics, how money is spent matters more than how much. So we need to have targeted spending, like early childhood programs, high quality teaching, tutoring, and school mental health supports. And these show positive effects. But spending more on things like flashy tech without integration or administrative overhead doesn't necessarily raise performance. So overall, we need to make sure the money is spent directly or indirectly supporting every student. So it's a matter of equity. Equity is key here. Studies, for example, from the Learning Policy Institute at the National Bureau of Economic Research showed that increased spending directed to low-income students significantly improves outcomes, higher test scores, graduation rates, and even adult earnings. So we need to make sure that all students, especially the underserved students, have equal access. Equal access here means they get the needs they need, not equal opportunity. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Richard Harding?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, can you just repeat the question one time?
Oh, yes, of course. The question is, again, Cambridge spends more per student than any other district in Massachusetts. Do you believe these funds are being used effectively? And if not, where would you make changes?
Absolutely not. And that's the reason why I joined with Elizabeth Hudson, voted against this budget. This budget, which is, $250 million of resources, to me, did not answer the question that I think is most important. When you talk about a budget document being reflecting your values, our values should be in a district such as ours that all students should be able to excel in their academics, no matter what zip code they're born in and no matter where their parents work. This is a district that has, for years, and Elizabeth's graph showed, not been able to serve all students in the right way. So for me, I absolutely don't believe that this budget and it has reflected what the Cambridge values are. I'd also just want you to think about the reality. The budget that we have, and people have talked about the fixed cost, there's a lot of outliers that people need to talk about. We spend about $40 million on transportation, right? That's a huge number in a city of 6.2 miles that we need to really look at. Is the school choice system working as it's supposed to work? And also just looking at the things we don't do, what we don't spend money on, right? Teacher evaluation. Almost 60% of our teachers have not been evaluated in a timely manner in the last 2 cycles. We don't spend money, quite frankly, on making sure that our teachers are ready for algebra, to be prepared to teach algebra at high levels to all students. We don't spend money on some other things that I think are most valuable to making sure that students succeed.
Thank you. Our next question is about achievement gaps among students. Each candidate will have, once again, 1.5 minutes to answer. The order for these questions will be Elizabeth Hudson, Judging Lee, Richard Harding, and then Jane Hershey. Elizabeth Hudson, we'll start with you. The question is, can you provide one way that the school committee might address persistent achievement gaps amongst our diverse students? And then again, can you provide one way that the school committee might address persistent achievement gaps amongst our diverse students?
Yes, thank you. Now, bottom line here is going to be that we should not promote students to the next grade level before they have mastered the content for their current grade level. As background, I told you about 30 seconds ago that 50% of the class is working below grade level, but that obscures a few details. 75% of high income students are working at or above grade level, and only 25% of low income students are. And that's not because we're doing a spectacular job during the school day for the high income students. It's because they're getting supplements outside of and tutoring outside of the school day. So why is our school day instruction inadequate? Again, this isn't an issue of needing a fancy new policy or a new curriculum. Literacy and math haven't changed in centuries, and it's not the students. There's lots of talk about outside of school stressors that students have. But if you look at the Banneker, the local charter school, they have exactly the same population and they deliver substantially better scores for those same students. So our issue for having better results, like what we really need to do, the way we need to provide equity is to teach kids to read and teach them math, and that's an execution problem. And then, as I mentioned at the top, right there, and that's a function of we don't hire and retain the best and we don't fire the worst. And when we don't fire the people who aren't making a difference, we cannot show up and better compensate and better support the ones who are. And then, as I mentioned at the top, We add further insult to injury by promoting students who haven't mastered the material. A diploma should mean that you can understand the material that's covered in 13 years for which we have you. It's not a participation trophy. You can't get a job with a participation trophy. You can't be a responsible citizen of a democracy with one. But more importantly, you can't pay your rent and build a family. As I mentioned, real equity isn't programs or PowerPoints or nice words. It's teaching kids reading and math and not stopping until that's achieved.
Thank you. Judging Lee?
Right. So when we talk about achievement gaps, we actually need to look at closing opportunity gaps, not just measure achievement gaps. Achievement gaps reflect outcomes, but opportunity gaps reveal the deeper causes. So right now it's like comparing apples and oranges, but only giving them one growing condition. So if we treat every fruit as if it needs the same soil, light, and water, most would not thrive. And if we want a good harvest, we must give each fruit the conditions that fit it best. So we need to close these opportunity gaps, and we need to provide support like what the students actually really need, not simply giving everyone the same thing, as I just mentioned in the previous questions. So these include supporting diverse learning styles, visual, auditory, and hands-on, restoring creative project-based learning, ensuring educator flexibility in curriculum and teaching, providing technology tools that enhance, not replace human connection, making the Office of Student Services more accessible and responsive. So that means making the content, the curriculum more accessible to all students, whether they're struggling or not struggling. Creating growth opportunities for all students, those catching up, those already excelling, and everyone in between. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Harding?
Absolutely. This is a question that is not that complex. Elizabeth spoke to it. Excellent instruction measured by student achievement, period, point blank. There is no other metric that is most important or more important than the student achievement of our kids. We have a district where the instructors have decided that they can have kids that fail consistently over time, but their teaching is great. And I just do not believe that. That's number one. We also have to talk about the reality of preparing kids for the 21st century economy. Our trades program, which used to be one of the best in the state, has to be bolstered. My electrician friends are thriving and making a lot of money in this 21st century economy. We also have to talk about the root causes of this dysfunction, mainly the fact that we do not evaluate our classroom teachers, right? 60% of them have not been evaluated. And by the way, it's the one place where the school committee and the unions agree. So this dysfunction is built into the system. There is a effort by myself and Elizabeth Hudson to make sure that we're writing the script. We also have to get away from the low aim theory. We live in the most innovative square mile in the world, and a kid in Mumbai at 13 has a better chance of working in Kendall Square than a kid in our public schools. The rosy talk about, project-based learning and kids feeling good, that's okay. But at the end of the day, the Cambridge Public Schools fail students at a clip that is unacceptable in a city of 120,000 people spending over $250 million of resources. It's unacceptable. Let's work towards changing it.
Thank you. Jane Hershey?
So I agree with the other candidates, and I want to emphasize this is the most important issue facing the school committee right now. It's the most important issue facing the schools is the achievement gap, and the achievement gap particularly that's based at least in part by race and culture. That is a long-standing issue, and it's a disgrace. So I would look at that extended learning day. We've got things in place that we could use differently. We've got 2 schools with extended learning days. How are we using that time? And how is that time specifically being used around academic achievement? Mr. Harding is absolutely right. The teachers are asking for evaluation. They've been asking for evaluation. Putting that in place and making that a priority. The school committee can support the superintendent, whoever that new permanent superintendent is, to make sure that that's a priority. I disagree with Mr. Harding, though, about the project-based learning. I do not think that that's at odds with academic achievement. I think it supports and enhances it. And I think a good curriculum incorporates that. And I'm looking at the new reading curriculum. We're in our 2nd year, early with the CKLA new phonics-based reading curriculum in our elementary schools. as something that could really have a positive impact on that achievement gap.
Thank you. Our final question in this round focuses on curriculum and innovation. So each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer. The order will be Judging Lee, Richard Harding, Jane Hershey, and then Elizabeth Hudson. Judging Lee, we'll start with you. What's one innovative change in curriculum, technology, or partnerships you would champion to prepare students for the world ahead? Again, what's one innovative change in curriculum, technology, or partnerships you would champion to prepare students for the world ahead?
So the real question we really need to ask is our education really preparing children to thrive and succeed beyond the K-12? True excellent education is not about raising a head in one subject. It is about cultivating the ability to learn, to think critically, and to adapt. Many people hold advanced degrees, even PhDs, yet struggle when circumstances change. What sustains success is resilience, creativity, and the capacity to keep learning. So what I'm proposing is our current school, we need to teach students how to learn, and we have to have responsive experiential learning that drives children's curiosity and giving the teachers autonomy, flexibility, time and resources so that they can adapt to every child's unique needs. And we're not talking, when we talk about students' needs, it's not just about those with an IEP or who are neurodivergent. Every student has needs. Some may be gifted in math, but they might not be a team player, or they are poor in time management, executive functioning. So we need to prepare them. We need to pack in these in the experiential learning, and that can be done. I've spoken to a number of educators, experienced educators. They can do this if the district provide them a little bit of autonomy and flexibility and the resources. And that's the kind of education we should aim for, and also preparing the children to be able to not just performing excellent academic, but also their mental well-being. Okay. And life skills. These are the ones that really prepare them.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Richard Harding?
Yeah, just really quickly, I think we need to get away from the sharecropper educational system, making sure that we're actually looking at the 21st century opportunities that we have. This is including enhancing our RISTER programs, particularly the trades with the unions, and creating that connection. We have zero concrete connection on paper to the Kendall Square life science community, period, and stop. The partnerships aren't there. It takes leadership to make that happen. We also have to look at making sure we're bolstering our kids in the science and math areas. I've been a champion of algebra. When I came back to the school committee, my first motion to create a pathway for algebra was like 2012. I was shocked to land when I landed back that the curriculum was not ready to roll it out. And now, hopefully next year, we'll have that rolled out. I do want to say respectfully, I don't disagree with Ms. Hershey about student-based learning. My nephew goes to the Cambridge Club. What I'm saying is that alone is not the issue. The issue is that our teachers are not being evaluated and measured by the student achievement of the students that they're with more time than sometimes their parents. And we need to do a better job to invest in not only teacher evaluation, but making sure that there's other metrics that measure student achievement. With the MCAS gone, we have a rudderless system. People will just decide that students are getting a good education because they say so. And I understand as an entrepreneur, as a public health professional, that in our 21st century economy, you will have to meet standards where there's metrics attached to what you know and what you don't know. So I would just drop there, but curriculum, just real quick, the curriculum.
No, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay.
Thank you. Jane Hershey?
Yeah, well, let me build on what Mr. Harding's saying, because I agree with so much of it. To build on that project-based learning, it has to be based on our state's academic standards, which are good, solid standards. They were a model for the country. And we have to be using evidence-based curriculum. And to our teachers, the teachers who also want to be evaluated, teachers need to be treated as partners in how that curriculum is implemented. They need to have a voice in that. A good director, a good curriculum director reaches out to teachers and gets their input. The director, of course, makes that decision, but they make it with that boots on the ground perspective, from teachers. So I think that that's a really critical piece of how our curriculum could be improved. I think to the RISTA program, I think that's another really important piece. Again, I want to agree with Mr. Harding on that I think stronger partnerships with the biotech. We've got some amazing vocational technical education programs at RISTA that have natural connections with the biotech industry. And that would be amazing for the school committee to help support and make those connections stronger. I don't know if that's low hanging fruit, but I do not think that that is high hanging fruit. And I think it would make an enormous difference.
Thank you. Elizabeth Hudson?
I am still on mute. Okay, so first I want to underline the point that Jiajing made about success criteria. We need success criteria. We don't today follow up to see how well kids are doing post-school, and this will obviously get worse with MCAS gone as a graduation requirement. So we need to know, are kids learning the right school skills? Are they fluent and confident in those skills? We can measure, for example, labor force participation and success. We say 98% graduate, more than 75 go to college, for example, but we don't talk about how many kids need to take remedial classes in college, which is really embarrassing for a district that spends, as Jane mentioned at the top, $40K ahead. Again, we used to spend $20K ahead. Now we spend $40K ahead. We get exactly the same results. I also want to endorse the points that folks have made about the vocational education. That's incredibly important. But now let me hit the question square on. We don't get to choose the problem, the curriculum problem that we need to confront next. It has already chosen us, and it's artificial intelligence. We need to weave AI literacy into the curriculum. We need to safeguard students' learning of the fundamentals such that we ensure that they're not just outsourcing all of that work to AI. We know students are already doing this today. They're doing it in class. They're doing it for homework. They're doing it to write articles for the student newspaper. At the same time, we can't treat AI like a black box. Students need to learn the basic math and design principles, understanding these technologies so that they are not only fluent in them, but also so that they viscerally understand their limitations and can participate in a modern economy where this is going to be a big deal. Whether or not you agree that this is, with any one person's approach, you cannot disagree. This is something that we need to confront head on, and we need to confront it right now.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move back to questions for the City Council.
Thank you, Kaya. All right, so we are on part 3 of our questions for the City Council candidates. Well, we're going to have 3 questions in this. The middle one will be a show of hands. So if you agree with what I am saying, please raise your hand, okay? Thank you very much. And we will start with Louise Venden in that order, just so you know, because that's consistent. Question number 1, housing affordability in neighborhoods. Again, you'll have 1.5 minutes each. How can we balance affordable housing with historic neighborhood preservation? And again, I'll repeat that question. How can we balance affordable housing with historic neighborhood preservation? Louise Venden.
Thank you very much. The City Development Department has done studies of different neighborhoods, and indeed, Cambridge has a variety of neighborhoods that are diverse in terms of their style, their heritage, the number of people who live there, the style of homes. What we have not done with the multifamily housing proposal is they have not actually adapted the design and scope standards that have been developed as a part of those studies into some kind of criteria for evaluating the scope and the size and the scale of housing. And I believe there should be diverse housing. We say we're a diverse community, but in many neighborhoods, that housing style is not diverse. And I live in East Cambridge, where we have all kinds of housing. We have tall towers, we have little single families, we have 3-story, we have Cambridge Crossing, where Elizabeth lives. And we all come from different backgrounds. We have different income levels, and we are very, very committed to our community. And it helps us get to know each other. I think that we need to maintain that kind of cohesion or that ability to build a community in those neighborhoods. And it will mean that we will have to impose some standards through community organizations in those neighborhoods.
Thank you. Thank you, Louise Venden. And now I'm going to ask Aisha Wilson to please respond to that same question.
Thank you so much for the question. Um, I think this is an important one because it's one that we're definitely just having a lot of conversations around. Um, Affordable housing is critically important. We want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to build and make sure that we are building units that are affordable. That's what's going to maintain the diversity within our community. And we recognize that we have such great history in our city, right? And in our city being centuries old means that there are buildings that have been around for a very long time. And so how do we preserve it? How do we maintain those legacies? That doesn't mean that we don't build. It means that we need to actually strike that balance. And I think we need to have a more deeper dive into what are the conversations, like how do we actually tackle it when we have initiatives to build and to create more housing, especially affordable housing. So what I'm really focusing on is making sure that we're looking at how do we preserve certain artifacts, excuse me, of a building to make sure that the representation is still there and that the legacy maintains. And it could be the name of the building, it could be certain specific pieces of the building. But I don't know if it means that we just don't touch a building. So I think we need to do a little bit more research on that, have some deeper and better conversations around that so that we could, as a community, strike the balance as to what, in terms of how we actually move forward on this important issue and topic.
Thank you, Aisha Wilson. And now I'd like to go to Kathy Zuzi.
Housing is certainly our biggest problem in the city, making sure that we can provide housing for young people, for families, and for our workers. So I respect that that is a real problem in this community. What I see as a problem, though, is like, why aren't we following the recommendations of Envision Cambridge? Envision Cambridge, which, we did it over 3 years. We engaged 5,000 residents in the study. That study said, spare the neighborhoods. The neighborhoods are like coherent, focused development do smart growth along the corridors, the squares, and in transition districts. And those transition districts are usually the parking lots or 1 and 2 story industrial buildings, where often on the edges of neighborhoods, where if you did a big development, it wouldn't dramatically impact neighborhoods. So I would argue that we do need to build more housing, and we need to think creatively about how to do it in these difficult times when the costs are so very high. But we should follow Envision Cambridge's recommendations. I also feel like we should encourage the preservation of naturally affordable units in old buildings. Again, I'm concerned about demolitions and the creation of carbon, releasing embodied carbons. I think that's a big problem. We need to encourage the funding of a Cambridge Land Trust, and we need to create a revolving housing production fund that will lower housing production costs.
Okay, so thank you. And thank you very much. And I'm sorry, but continuing on, we have Elizabeth Bisio, please.
Yeah, so my perspective on this issue comes from, I'm probably one of the only people here that actually lives in a 12-story building in one of these areas that was upzoned, maybe Louise, but so yeah, I think for me, what I would like to see is have design review put back into place as part of the upzoning as a way to kind of be able to take into account with the character of the neighborhood and making sure that somebody in the process is really looking out for, does this make sense for this context in regards to, yes, we need more affordable housing, but is it going to be something that is sustainable? Is it going to be something that makes sense with the neighborhood and is a place that people actually want to live? And so we can build as much housing as we want, but if it's not going to last more than 10 years, we're going to just be having these cycles of demolition and rebuilding. If it's not going to be something that builds community, people still aren't going to stay and they're not going to be integrated into the community, and you're actually going to put up more barriers. And that's really detrimental to a lot of people who would be accessing this affordable housing. So I think that's where design review can really help mitigate those factors and help protect against some of the things that we might see down the road if we have this kind of increase in developers coming in and putting up lots of buildings.
Thank you very much. Elizabeth Bisio, thank you. Mr. Hanratty, John Hanratty. Okay, stop right there. You're muted.
All right. Yeah,
Okay,
sorry.
thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, I think maintaining historical buildings is important. I think even more important is maintaining the community that surrounds the new building that you want to put in. I think that the current multifamily ordinance doesn't really take that into account. It just unleashes developers to build whatever they want. And this isn't a controversial subject at all. As I walk door to door, it's not 8-to-1 for doing this. It's 1-to-8 or even less. And the people that support the multifamily zoning are the ones that are expecting to get some affordable housing out of this. And that's not clear what's happening right now. So I think the issue here is that we're pushing housing. We're allowing developers to define what the community is going to look like, and actually speculators that are actually driving up the cost rather than delivering affordable housing. So we need to look at the whole subject, not only as are we actually delivering more affordable housing, lower cost housing, maintaining the housing that's naturally there. Are we maintaining the community and the character, and of course all of the parts of Envision that we've been talking about? Thank you.
Thank you, John Hanratty. And now Peter Sue. Oh, so Peter, you are also muted. I'm sorry.
My bad.
No.
So, I think the question is on how do we balance affordable housing with historic neighborhood preservation. I think there are two components to this question. One is affordable housing, and we all know that there are currently 22,000 people waiting for affordable housing. That's the rough data. And then the second part is historic neighborhood preservation. I don't think folks agree on what the definition of historic, and I think that is something to be worked on, to be fair, so that we have a common sense in terms of what does historic, how many years are we talking about, and so I think the balance between those two, really, the long story short, which is not an easy answer, I believe, is to get the right balance among views of various neighborhoods, communities, the city's aim in representing and advocating for the most vulnerable populations in Cambridge that need affordable housing, and also developers. I think if we can get a balance among those three groups, that's probably the balance between affordable housing and historic neighborhoods. Otherwise, I think it's going to be really hard to really come up a view that satisfies everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And I would like to give the final word on this particular question to Zion Sharon.
When it comes to housing and zoning, I think it's arguably one of the most important things that the city council really has control over. And the recent change in zoning in February just did not represent what the majority of residents want. What the majority of residents want is an increase in housing, kind of like an example at 116 Norfolk, which is literally right outside my window. I know you can't see it, but I can. And it's a 20-unit building that had an expansion on it that now makes it over 60 units. So we tripled the amount of housing units. The housing units are in better quality now while preserving the existing building. There's a lot that we can do for housing without this tearing down model. And when they called it multifamily housing, I've looked at a lot of the projects they've suggested for demolitions. One of them over at 8486 Ellery Street is already a 14-unit, beautiful brick building that's over 100 years old. Those are the buildings that we should be preserving. We can build on the back, open up a little bit of that brick building to build an extension. Those are things that I think are completely reasonable and the majority of residents truly wanted. But when residents heard multifamily zoning, they thought that would be smaller unit buildings, 2 units, maybe 4, not these big apartment buildings that people are proposing under the fake promise that it will provide affordable housing. While those same advocates now are trying to reduce the affordable percentage from 20% to as low as 10. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so this next round is a lightning round where we're going to raise our hands. We have 4 questions. If you agree with what I am about to say, which I will say twice, then please raise your hand as a yes. Okay? Any questions? No. Okay. Do you support giving residents the legal right to appeal decisions on nearby new buildings? Again, do you support giving residents the legal right to appeal decisions on nearby new buildings? Thank you. And if you just leave your hands up, that'd be great. Okay, now you can put them down. Question number 2 of 4. Do you support keeping the Historic Commission and neighborhood conservation districts involved in decisions about new buildings? I'm going to repeat that question. Do you support keeping the Historic Commission and neighborhood conservation districts involved in decisions about new buildings? Should I see half? Thank you. Okay. 3 of 4. Do you support returning to larger setbacks to allow more green spaces and trees? Do you support returning to larger setbacks to allow more green space and trees? And Aisha, I see that you're also half on that again. Okay, no, that is, and so is Louise Venden. Okay, the 4th question of this round is, do you support keeping existing homes instead of demolishing them to build larger, more expensive single-family homes or townhouses? I'm going to repeat that question. Do you support keeping existing homes instead of demolishing them to build larger, more expensive single-family homes or townhouses? And if I could have a show of hands, please. So there's a half. Okay, everyone except Elizabeth was a half. Thank you. All right, our 3rd question. We're now returning to the order, which is going to start with Aisha Wilson. And this is a question on city finances. Thank you all. With shrinking commercial tax revenue, where would you cut spending and where would you invest more? I'm going to repeat that question, please. With shrinking commercial tax revenue, where would you cut spending and where would you invest more? Aisha Wilson, please.
Thank you so much for that question. I think right now we are seeing such an increase around public safety and the need for social services in our communities. From how food insecure people, housing insecure folks, to making sure that our kids are able to eat and have a quality meal. So we need to make sure that we are actually increasing the services for that. You know, we cut the service towards the Transition Wellness Center. That was a $3 million price tag. But yet over the next 5 years, we're spending $150 million in terms of bike lanes in our streets. So when we talk about the value of what we are actually prioritizing in our city and our community, if we can't keep a shelter open when it's $3 million or provide families with cash assistance of $500 a month, but yet we will say that we prioritize and recognizing that food insecurity causes folks to pass away, drug overdose, we're seeing this at high rates and high numbers, and the investment of $150 million over the next 5 years for bicycle networks. We're just not having the same conversation. And I think, again, it goes back to what we value in the city of Cambridge, where we actually need to do better. So I would see us needing to make some really strong and hard decisions in terms of where we're cutting and where we're spending, but we need to make sure that we are putting people, our most vulnerable people, first. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'm going to go to Kathy Zuzi, please. Same question. And if anyone wants me to repeat the question, please let me know.
I'm concerned that Cambridge pays the Cambridge premium for goods and services consistently. A friend of mine has a PhD in parking from, not in parking, in transportation planning. The joke is that he has a PhD in parking from MIT. And I asked him about the cost of the shuttle study that we're having done. And he said he'd done lots of them for 30 to 40,000. We're going to pay 400,000 for that study. Recently, he brought to my attention that participatory budget is going to pay $400,000. Again, it's the same number for 2 bus shuttles. He said that he has installed similar bus shuttles. I'm sorry, not shuttles, bus, bus places where people catch the bus.
Shelters.
Shelters, thank you very much. He has installed, they cost $15,000 a piece. So he said we should really be paying $30,000, not $300,000 to $400,000 for 2 shelters. So I just think that I think we're paying a lot of money for goods and services. We're also contracting out services regularly, where I think we could do things in-house. City used to have an in-house park designer who often oversaw the construction of his parks. That was much less expensive than spending 2.5 million or 3 million on a park. And he said, well, often there were better results because he could alter designs during construction. So I think
Kathy, I'm gonna have to stop you.
we need to spend smarter.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, and now we're gonna go to Elizabeth Bisio, please.
Yeah, I agree with both Kathy and Aisha's statements. I think right now we really don't know enough about kind of the programs where we're spending money and again, the outcomes. So I would advocate for a comprehensive review of the current city programs to see, does the budget match the outcomes that we're getting? I think the shelter was a great example of something that was it a lot of money? Yes, but it actually is one of the things that is the most impactful for residents and keeping them off the street and kind of in a situation that is going to help them be successful in the future. And so even though it was something that was a large spend, it had a really great outcome and was consistent outcomes. So how can we be more focused on that and make sure we're putting money in the right places? Because we are going to have to make some hard decisions moving forward of where that money is going.
Thank you. All right, Elizabeth, thank you. And now John Hanratty, same question, please. John, where are you? Oh,
you
there
go.
you go. Okay.
The new tablet here. Yeah, so yes, I think that this is not an answer of which things to cut. It's about process. It's about setting priorities, and the examples that were given earlier are very good examples of the most needy people need $3 million, and a much less needy population needs 150 million. You have to make a priority there and understand what it is. I think it's also a change in attitude. I think we have to think, we believed for years that we're the richest city around. We can spend money like crazy. And we've become addicted to spending money. And I think that cost management, I think that looking at things and doing things more efficiently with what we have, and actually doing some cost management where we can look at, where right now we have overruns in most of the projects we do. We don't maintain things, so we have to rebuild them, like parks. Complete renovation versus just taking care of the basketball court and the playground would have saved us a lot of money. So I think just a change of attitude is what we need to get, that we can really focus on delivering more for less.
Thank you. Peter Sue, same question.
I would say, yes, the mentality and attitude would be the biggest thing, meaning that I would agree with all of my candidate colleagues saying that, we need to review, we need to get more transparent budgeting kind of review and prioritize what is really what the city really needs, and in certain aspects cut on certain things because we have to make ends meet because of less funding. Me personally, I came into politics because of taking care of a patient with drug overdose. I would invest more in public health. That would be my top priority. And by that, I want to specify that I would work. I would love to work more for the homeless folks, folks with mental health issues, and folks with substance issues. Substance use issues. I think we can talk about bike fatalities. That's single digit, but if we compare that to narcotic overdose in Cambridge, that's, depending on the data you look at, it's at least 10 to 20 times more for narcotic overdose per year. And if we look at the homeless data, depending on which data source you look at, it's 500 to 1,000 homeless people on the street at any given night. So I think those certainly deserve more of my attention, and that would be on the top of my list. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter Sue. Zion Sharon, same question.
Yeah, when it comes to finances, I think a lot of people actually underestimate how much of a financial issue we could be facing in the near future. We really do have a very large budget for our city, but that said, we could be seeing a decrease, and a fairly significant one. And maybe it's just the fact that I studied finance at Cornell that this stands out to me, but it's something that's very concerning to me. And I think that there are issues that we could be more efficient, whether it's something like the fire station that was quoted or expected to be about $25 million and ended up costing $77 million when it's over 3 times the amount. That's when it goes from a minor issue to a very clear systematic problem. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed. As far as the system goes, we don't directly pick exactly what gets funding. The city manager has a large role to play in that decision. But as far as what I would want to see prioritized, I would like to see snow removal as something that the city does as just a general courtesy to the residents. I've talked to a lot of elderly who say, I hire someone to do it, but if they don't show up, I can get fined. And we want to make sure that that's not an issue for people. Additionally, I would say anything that's related to needle cleanup, making sure that we have needles off of our streets and parks is something I would definitely prioritize. And I also would prioritize busing and transportation.
Thank you. All right, and for the last word on this particular topic, Louise Venton.
Thank you very much. The thing that we really need to impose, and I've looked at budgets in Provincetown, I've looked in budgets in development projects of my own. What we need to do is to invoke some performance standards, and even to invoke performance standards for the city manager when the city council actually adopts laws and expects certain things to happen. Do they in fact happen? Do the resources get allocated to those things? Now, you passed the Affordable Housing Overlay District in 2020. Do you know how many units have been built actually? And Kathy, I think these numbers are right. 62 have been completed. That's 5 years later. Why? Why? We're going to have to spend some more money. I know why, and you know why, and they know why. It costs too much money. They can't find financing. They can't afford materials. And if we really want affordable housing, we are going to have to invest in help those developers through public-private partnerships, through a housing trust, through funneling more money through the Affordable Housing Trust. We talk about these kinds of things, we pass laws, and we don't make sure it gets done. And yes, the other thing is to make sure we pay attention to the most vulnerable. That is our families, our children, our public health. And if we postpone a park, if we postpone putting in some bike lanes, that's what we have to do. We all have to make those kinds of decisions.
Thank you. With that final word from Louise Venton, we are going to move back to Kaya Patterson and the school committee. Thank you very much. Thank you all of you.
We'll now turn to vocational and technical training. So the order will be Richard Harding, Jane Hershey, Elizabeth Hudson, and then Judging Lee. Richard Harding, will begin with you. Do you support expanding vocational/technical training? Why or why not? Again, the question is, do you support expanding vocational/technical training? Why or why not?
90 seconds.
You got it.
Yes, yeah.
Absolutely. What I would do though is review and have an audit of what are the real partnerships that we have in terms of making sure that the enhancements that we're doing are really connected to the 21st century economy and real job creation. I've done this with the Cambridge Works program through the city of Cambridge, but most importantly, we also would have to make sure that we're really getting a strong advisory board that can advocate for the RISTA program, as well as making those connections real. If you look at some of our unions, we have 3 people literally in IBEW local Boston number 4. That's 3 Cambridge people who are registered union electricians. That's unacceptable. I talked to a guy the other night at Caroline Hunter's time, and he said, look, we're trying hard to make sure we're recruiting people. We need to start that recruitment not only in the high school at RISTA, but in the middle schools. There's also a strong push for women in the union to train women to become tradespeople. So absolutely, I would expand our opportunities in RISTA, but it has to start with having a strong advisory that's connected with the executive director and making sure that RISTA students feel like they're part of Cambridge Ridge and Latin. One of the big problems is that the way that we offer RISTA does not always allow students to feel as if they can explore the opportunities in RISTA while exploring other things that they want to do as scholars at Ridge and Latin. We have to do a better job. It's one of our prized possessions that we underutilize, and the school committee needs to have a direct focus on making sure that RISTA works and works well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jane Hershey?
Yeah, I agree. Not enough people know about RISTA and the technical education that we offer here in Cambridge. It's really quite remarkable. I definitely support investing in RISTA. I don't know if the people on this forum know that about half of our CRLS students participate in RISTA. So there is a fluidity. To Mr. Harding's point, there could be more, but there is already a fluidity between the students who are doing the CRLS academic program and RISTA. And all RISTA students have the same graduation requirements, which with MCAS disappearing as a graduation requirement is in the process of being replaced. So I think that it's important to invest in those opportunities, to extend those internships and those apprenticeships with unions. And I also think it's important to make sure that the students in RISTA have that full array of academic supports that CRLS tracked students have. Students who end up majoring in the technical education we offer may end up going to college. They may end up becoming philosophy professors at some point later in their life. People who graduate from CRLS may end up being carpenters. There's a lot, as we know, that can happen in a life. And I think treating those as 2 separate programs is not helpful to either one. So I think strengthening RISTA is. I'm at time. Okay.
Yes.
Strengthening RISTA. I'll stop on that note.
Okay.
Thank you. Elizabeth Hudson?
Thank you. I'm going to pick up right where Jane left off. So yes, like everybody, I strongly support expanding our vocational and technical training. And here's why. Vocational education isn't just for students who plan to head right to the job market, though it is also for serving them. It's for every student who wants to be prepared for the real world. Member Harding mentioned a little while ago about how much you can make in the trades today, how valuable those skills are and how transferable they are to many different types of jobs. And he's exactly right. These programs teach practical, economically valuable skills that make young people more adaptable, more employable, and more confident, whether they go to college or not. But we can't just keep running the same old courses. As Member Harding mentioned again, we need a tip-to-tail review to make sure we're teaching the skills that are valuable in today's economy and attractive to students, not yesterday's. And we should be checking in years after graduation, as I mentioned earlier, to see if our students are thriving in their careers and learned what they needed in order to succeed. Again, it's not just enough to offer these technical courses; they need to be excellent. Students should graduate from these programs with mastery, and we should follow up with them. And finally, these courses need to be open to everybody, as Jane mentioned. We need to do a better job integrating these with our main CRLS main CRLS academic programs. Too often, these programs are kind of under-advertised or treated as niche or treated as a standalone track, when in fact they're critical for, as I mentioned, both college-bound and workforce-bound kids. In today's economy, where coding sits alongside advanced manufacturing and design thinking and machine work, students need to be able to combine academics with hands-on expertise, and that's what they get in these programs.
Thank you. Judging Lee?
Yes, so I strongly support expanding vocational programs in our district. At CRLS, the VISTA program has not very been promoted, even though it provides incredible hands-on opportunities that prepare students for meaningful careers. I personally know 2 graduates from the registered nursing program who are now doing really well in their professions, and their success shows how vocational pathways can lead to real lasting achievement. I believe academic and vocational paths should both be celebrated. Success comes in many forms, and every student deserves the chance to thrive in the pathway that fits them best. By expanding these programs and partnering with other institutions, we can create more opportunities for students to gain practical skills, explore careers, and be ready for life beyond high school. Supporting both academics and vocational training strengthens our community and shows that every student has options and helps them build the confidence and expertise to succeed in the future.
Thank you. Our next question is about supporting student well-being. So each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer. The order will be Jane Hershey, Elizabeth Hudson, Judging Lee, and then Richard Harding. So Jane Hershey, we'll start with you. What's one step Cambridge schools should take to better support student well-being? Again, the question is, what's one step Cambridge schools should take to better support student well-being?
Yeah, such an important issue. I said earlier that I thought the academic achievement gap was the most important issue. This is right up there. So I'm going to change to say this is also as important as that. I think having school psychologists, school counselors in every school in our elementary schools, and 3 in our upper middle schools is what is a great improvement that I've seen over the last 15 years in Cambridge Public Schools. One place where I think that can be extended is the family engagement. So our young people their lives in school and their lives at home are, of course, intertwined, and their family and their school community really need to work together to make sure that they're supported both academically, but also emotionally and socially. So I think the ways that Cambridge is investing in that family engagement, the culturally responsive training and support that teachers get, I think that needs to be strengthened and invested in to be sure that that bridge between families, children's home life, young people's home life, and their school life is as seamless as we can possibly make it.
Thank you. Elizabeth Hudson?
Thank you. I'm going to take your one thing question, but I'm going to make it 2 things. So as we're talking about student well-being, I think first and foremost, we need to place kids. I'm going to take this in an academic direction. We need to place kids in the appropriate classes. We have classrooms today in our middle school and high school with 9 grade levels of ability, a span of 9 grade levels of ability in a single classroom. Teachers can't effectively teach to all of these levels at once, so they're forced to focus on one subset to the exclusion of others. We did a student climate survey in the spring, and more than 60% of our students said that they were bored during class, they weren't engaged by the schoolwork, and 40% said that they didn't believe that their teachers had high expectations of them. That's not because our faculty are bad or don't actually have high expectations. It's that we don't have time, and we don't group kids, and we don't focus our time and design our time such that we can focus on each one individually and really meet their needs. The second thing we need to talk about is the environment in classrooms. We have classrooms, especially in our middle schools, that are regularly disrupted by screaming, throwing of laptops, and physical altercations. We do this in the name of inclusion. We had nice intentions, but it's not working out in practice. Faculty can't teach effectively in these environments, and students can't learn. We have vaping and fighting and kids shoplifting from nearby businesses. It's a mess. And so we need to focus on what is that learning environment into which they walk every day, and make sure that it is a calm place where they can learn, that they are taught appropriately, and that every student believes that their teachers have high expectations for them. That is the single most important thing we can do.
Thank you. Judging Lee?
So I strongly believe that well-being of students is an essential part of excellent education, in addition to excellent academic performance. We're seeing more behavioral challenges, anxiety and depression, and too often schools themselves can feel like a source of stress for students. Success in school and in life is closely tied to mental well-being, which is part of what I've been proposing of my platform. Students who have a strong, joyful mind and feel a sense of belonging in their school are more engaged, motivated, and ready to learn. To support this, we need to address the underlying issues affecting students' well-being and ensure that every student has access to these resources they need. This means increasing the availability of social workers and counselors and making sure all students can access these services when they need them. When schools actively nurture mental health, students are better able to thrive academically, socially, and emotionally, building resilience and a sense of connection that lasts beyond the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Harding?
Yes, I believe Elizabeth Hudson nailed this in her last couple of sentences. Look, we have to create and make sure that we're maintaining learning environments that are safe, where kids feel supported. And most importantly, if you talk to people who are really deeply involved, particularly in the middle school level, it's making sure that kids feel that they're loved and cared about. Kids are very responsive and understand better than adults sometimes when they're not cared for in the right way and that people are disregarding their psychological safety. Some of this can be accomplished by making sure that we have more people than just the trained specialists who are trained around social emotional learning. And that's on both sides, supporting teachers and parents at the same time, as well as making sure there's an extension of this training into the after schools. Last but not least, we have to make sure that not only do we make school fun, but we make school a place where people feel like they can come and get their next meet. And I think that is the biggest hiccup that we have in the Cambridge public schools, that many kids do not feel, and parents do not feel like their kids are getting what they need. I think that in this time post-COVID, my public health training teaches me that people, believe it or not, are worse off in their mental health space around coming back to the normalcy that we think is regular for adults. It takes kids a lot longer. Just because the pandemic has stopped and has become sort of in the endemic stage, we can't expect that kids would just immediately snap back. So I think that we have a lot of work to do, and I look forward to working with whomever's on the school committee and protecting the social emotional welfare of kids and families.
Thank you. We'll now do a quick raise your hands round. So I'll read a statement and a candidate should raise their hand if they agree. The first statement is, do you support stronger engagement between the administration, teachers, and parents? And I'll say it again. Do you support stronger engagement between the administration, teachers, and parents? Okay. Thank you. The next question is, do you support clearer public reporting on achievement outcomes? Thank you. The next question is, do you support a more transparent superintendent selection process? Okay. Thank you. Next, do you support maintaining and expanding universal pre-K? Thank you. And then finally, do you support longer and/or free after-school programming? Thank you. Okay, great. We'll now be moving into our closing round.
Thank you. And you all get 2 minutes, and we're going to start with the school committee members. And the order is Elizabeth Hudson, Richard Harding, Judging Lee, and Jane Hershey. 2 minutes apiece. Elizabeth.
Great. All right. So in closing, you can get elected on nice words alone, but you can't get anything done with nice words alone, and you can't get anything done alone, period. So to that end, I'm going to take my 2 minutes to leave you with one point and some questions for all candidates. First, the point: we have no shortage of platitudes and progressive policies, but we have no progress. As we talked about at the top, it's an absolute scandal that we spend $100 million more every single year to operate the district, plus $500 million on new schools, with exactly zero growth in academic achievement. I voted against both budgets this term, and Richard Harding joined me in the last term, and let's keep that momentum going. Again, for avoidance of doubt, almost all of that money went to hiring people, not like, software or fancy consultants or backpacks. And almost all of those people were educators, not administrators. But the number of students didn't change. Let me repeat again. We went from an 8.8 student to staff member ratio, 8-to-1 to 4-to-1, the best in the nation. And nothing changed in terms of academic outcomes. 20 years ago, half our kids were below grade level. Today, half our kids are below grade level, and nobody can tell you why. Not a single person has done a time and motion study of the district and can tell you what all 1,747 members of our staff is doing. Next, some questions to ask all candidates. Because again, you need to be able to count to 4. You need 4 people that you like, and platitudes abound. So if somebody says they're going to be a responsible student of the budget, ask them to be specific. What would you cut? What would you expand? And what would you change? And are your cuts big enough to pay for your additions? If anybody tells you that we can pay for staff raises by axing a few highly paid administrators, they haven't done the math, or they learned math in a Cambridge Public Schools middle school. The budget is a public document, by the way. The sitting committee has no special access. Everybody can read it tip to tail. If somebody says they have high standards for all students, ask how they make this happen in practice. Again, teachers have classrooms with abilities at 9 different grade levels. How do you serve all those students simultaneously? If you say you're going to better support staff, how? Compensation, time, and how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to get the city council and the city manager to go along? It's easy to run around telling people what they want to hear. It's hard to actually make stuff happen. Make people show you that they have the guts and the spine to make the tough decisions, and that they can do the work to make things happen. Thank you, everybody, for your time today, and have a nice evening.
Thank you. And Richard?
Yeah, so I'm going to agree with Elizabeth, as we have for the past 18 months. The reality of the school committee is this: you have to know how to run things. I know that Suzanne tried, but she butchered my opening. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a public health professional. I'm a consultant. I'm a master facilitator. I'm a civil rights activist, and I know how to run things. Part of what I'm looking for is a partner or partners who understand that to run a school system in our way as a public board of directors, you have to understand how to run things and supervise, particularly the CEO, the superintendent. But most importantly, to Elizabeth's point, you have to have the guts to make courageous decisions over things that in some ways are very basic. If you look at the KLO, and I'm just going to use this as an example, 83, 71, 85. 83% of the kids in ELA did not meet the expectations. 71% of the kids in math did not meet the expectations. 85% of the kids in science did not meet the expectations. That was not a courageous vote. However, people are still saying that we should have kept that school open. It was a failure factory. And you must, as a school committee member, understand that running for office is different than serving. We need leaders who have the courage and the spine to question a system that has not, over time, historically treated all kids to an academic experience that is equal and just as a civil right. I also think that one has to really think about the challenges coming up. We have some new buildings that are coming online. We're going to have a new superintendent, but most importantly, we have 6 union contracts that are going to have to be settled. It's going to take a courageous school committee to stand up and fight for a union contract that will be designed to make sure that teachers have what they need, and most importantly, students get what they have to as scholars in our public school system. Look, at the end of the day, my North Star is the students in the Cambridge Public Schools and the families and taxpayers that we represent. I look forward to serving with whoever has the pleasure to be serving for the people of Cambridge. And thank you for your time, and thank you to the organizers.
Great. And the next one is Judge Yingling.
Yes, so have you ever wondered what it truly takes to prepare children for an uncertain, challenging future? I began as a medical scientist in cancer genetics at Karolinska Institute, Sweden, and completed my postdoctoral training at Harvard Medical School, with experiences spanning 5 countries and 4 continents. That global exposure taught me what works in education and what doesn't. I'm also a mother of 2 very different learners. One is a neurodivergent with an IEP, navigating Cambridge Public Schools firsthand. The other is a quick advanced learner. I homeschooled both for several years, so I've seen up close the strengths and gaps in our classrooms. Beyond parenting, I founded a nonprofit and serve on multiple boards, giving me insight into administration, strategy, and how to make programs work for people, globally and locally. One size does not fit all in education. Test scores are only one measure of success. They are far from the whole picture. Every child is unique, and we must access them and support them individually. Forcing all students into the same standard is like making everyone wear the same size clothes. It simply doesn't work. Truly excellent education teaches children how to learn, equips them to face challenges, and builds the confidence to adapt. To achieve this, we must work together as a community, families, schools, and local partners to create the conditions where every child can thrive. When children are empowered to explore, persist, and grow, they become lifelong learners ready to succeed in whatever they pursue. And I'm the walk person, so I invite you all to join me on this journey for all our children in the city, Cambridge. Thank you.
Jane Hershey.
So my experience, both as a parent of daughters who went to the Cambridge Public Schools and in founding and leading City Sprouts for 23 years, meant that I worked closely with Cambridge Public Schools and after 2012 Boston Public Schools as well to develop and implement a program for elementary school students. In that time, I worked with a lot of superintendents, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I wrote down here, principals in the elementary and the upper schools, and many, many, many classroom teachers. I know our schools, I know Cambridge Public Schools, and I think that's really valuable information for a Cambridge School Committee member. I think that would be a valuable addition to the school committee that we have right now. I also have worked as an executive director and now an interim executive director with nonprofits outside of Cambridge Public Schools, outside of schools. In that capacity, I've developed and managed budgets. I have hired, supervised, and fired staff. And I believe that I've got the skills and the experience that would be helpful in making the decisions to make our schools better. Most of all, I love our schools. I feel passionately about our Cambridge children's well-being. And I think I would bring that passion and that dedication to the school committee. What I would ask of my fellow school committee members, if I were elected to the school committee, to be curious, to invest your curiosity in finding out what's going on here. What makes these schools unique? What are people doing? And why are things the way they are before we insist upon change? I would ask for the teachers' perspective be incorporated into big decisions, say as curriculum decisions or discipline policy. Teachers don't make those policy decisions, but without taking in their perspective, I think we're dooming ourselves to less than success.
So, Jane, I'm sorry, I have to cut you off. And I guess you didn't get the memo. This means you have 15 seconds, but
I was sorry.
That's okay. So,
Great. So
Thank
now we're going to go on to the City Council roundup, 2 minutes each. We're going to start with Louise Venden, Aisha Wilson, Kathy Zusi, Elizabeth Bisio, John Hanratty, Peter Sue, and Zion Sharon. So, Louise.
Hello. Oops.
don't worry, we won't start the clock.
Okay, all right, never mind. Anyway, thank you so much. And I come to this role as someone who has served in a public select board. And actually, we built over 100 units of housing in a town that only had 4,000 units. I have run a business. I have been a finance person in a large banking institution, and I had to make performance goals every year, and I had to live up to them. I believe that we do not have a system which sets goals and makes sure that our government works. Passing laws will not build housing. Passing laws will not make our roadways safer. Passing laws will not make our environment cleaner. Passing laws will not feed children and make sure that our school functions properly. We need performance standards not only for all of the policies we pass, but we also need performance standards for city staff. They need to be held accountable for the budgets that they put into place. I'm not talking about zero-based budgeting, but I am talking about having goals that set very specific things that are going to be done in the next year. We don't have that in this system. I have worked in many organizations that have sophisticated human resources evaluations. But more importantly, look how many people are turned off to our government. We get 31% of the people vote. And why is that? Because they don't know what's going on. And frankly, They don't know what government is doing. And you know what? I didn't know that much until I learned, as been here for 3 years, gone to city council meetings, tried my best to become a part of the process here in Cambridge, and found that I was shut out because it's an insider's game. Incumbents here have a huge advantage. And the rest of us, regardless of our ideas, are shut out.
Thank you. And Aisha Wilson.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the organizers. I want to appreciate everyone for their time today. You know, first things first, I'm a mom. I'm a mom in this city that raised me, and I look forward to continuing to be a mom and raising my son in the city as well. So as we talk about affordable housing, we need to be keeping in mind just what does that mean for our next future generations. We want to make sure that they have a stellar education. We want to make sure that our after schools and childcare programs are up to par, and making sure that that the standards are where we know Cambridge education should be for the projection of our kids, those who are maybe neurodivergent or whatever. We also want to see that Cambridge is a thriving economic development space for our nonprofits, for our businesses, for our small entrepreneurs, but also when we think about our trades, our emerging adults, those who are graduating from high school, not reading on grade level, but wanting to actually figure out a career for themselves, making sure that they have the skill sets to be that those contributors to our community, and making sure that they're able to thrive and create livable wages to make sure that they are able to be the best neighbors that they can also be. So listen, I'm a social worker. I'm someone who truly cares about this community. I want to continue to serve. I spent 4 years on the school committee, serving in my first term on council. I want to continue to do this work, to be a representative for those who are often feeling left out of the conversations and out of the fold. You know, being a single mom by choice is not easy, but I have committed myself and dedicated myself to not only my city, but to also making sure that our next generation is raised with love, care, and so much more. So I really humbly look forward to working with everybody, but truly ask for your #1 vote on or before November 4th. Thank you all so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Kathy Susie.
Vote for me, Kathy Zusi, because I get things done, and for these 3 reasons as well. First, I not only listen, but I also respect the voices of Cambridge residents. The city is full of experts in so many areas, with so many opinions worthy of consideration. As a counselor, I rely on your guidance. 2, I do my homework. I dedicate countless hours to researching issues, meeting with constituents, and attending meetings to understand our challenges. I also attend regional and national conferences and read broadly to understand the better picture. 3, because I'll need it. As most of you know, I was only shy 150 votes in 2023 and only served today because of Joan Pickett's unfortunate early death. You need me on the council. I provide balance. And I need you to elect not just me, but at least a few, if not all of my colleagues here, to turn the ship in so many ways. 1, to revise the multifamily housing ordinance and redirect development to our corridors, squares, and transition districts. To restore a sense of safety to our squares, providing services for the unhoused and improving those services, helping those individuals to actually transition out of homelessness, while setting and enforcing behavioral expectations. This is essential for our businesses too. And to encourage broader transportation planning and greater support for green infrastructure solutions. Especially as we become more dense, Cambridge will need green open spaces. Parks and trees absorb carbon and also contribute to everyone's quality of life. I ask for your #1 vote, November 4th. Please go to votezusi.org to learn more about how to join my campaign. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Elizabeth Bicio.
Thank you so much, everybody. As I've talked to people across the city, I think one thing that has come up is how people really feel like they are not heard on the current council, and that the city is not necessarily representing their best interests when making policy decisions as of late. And so that is one of the main reasons why I'm running. And another question I get asked is like, how are you qualified? And I think that my experience in my time as a nurse advocating for my patients, that's the same kind of advocacy I would bring to city council. And now my advocacy in the boardroom for my customers and to make sure that that my employees and everybody we're moving effectively, like that is something also I would bring to the council. And so I think that those experiences make me uniquely positioned to be able to help kind of bring people's voices back into the council chamber and make sure that we're making decisions that are in the best interest of residents, not kind of flashy headlines or donors or special interest groups. And the city really needs to represent the people that live there, and so that it can continue to be the beautiful, innovative place that we know today. So I really would love your number one vote on November 1st. And the only way that we're going to make any changes is if we're able to get new people with new ideas into the chamber. And so really encourage you to consider some of the challengers here today.
Thank you. John Hanratty. You need to unmute.
I unmuted. Okay. Yeah, thanks to everyone who stuck with us and listening to our ideas and to meet the candidates here and what they want to do. This is an important election because Cambridge faces some dire challenges and our unlimited checkbook is disappearing. I bring some unique set of community advocacy, leadership, and business skills to address these challenges. I've lived in Cambridge for 40 years, sent my son to public schools. I started several technology companies that employed thousands of people actually. And I know the city very well. My business career taught me the importance of fiscal responsibility, engaging with stakeholders, setting relevant goals, measuring results, and adapting for success. Nobody gets it right the first time. Problems are solved by thoughtful, focused, and measured solutions, especially when budgets are tight. That is my experience. Over the last 6 years, I've focused on community advocacy and engaged the city government on many levels, on many issues, as an individual and as an organizer. I helped found the Neighborhood 9 Coalition and Cambridge Streets for All to give residents a voice and the issues that affect them. Single issue special interest groups have taken over and often influence the government more than the community. The result is tunnel vision laws that cause much community damage. City council must take a holistic view and represent the priorities of the community. Changing the council is essential to make this progress. I'm John Hanratty, and I need your number one vote. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Peter Sue.
All right, well, thank you everyone for bearing with us. I'm Peter Shu. I need your number one vote. I know everyone needs your number one vote, and I can, based on my interactions with all of the folks in this room, I can say all of us are good human beings, but I still need your number one vote. So I am a currently practicing physician. I would love to raise the standards of public health for all Canterbridges, but in particular, or especially the most vulnerable populations in Cambridge, including folks with homelessness, substance use issues, mental health problems, disabilities, impairments, dementia, and those family members needing to stay home and taking care of these folks. I don't think any candidate in the past 20 plus years has run on a public health platform as the major platform. And that's the platform I'm running on. And I think that is a unique opportunity for Cambridge. This is a great city. Public health covers more than just eliminating used needles from playgrounds and taking care of insurance issues. Both are near and dear to my heart, but public health also encompasses affordable housing, like we talked about, bike lanes, environment sustainability, green space, health literacy, and fair economics. I think having an academic background in public health, I believe in science and data over ideologies. I am willing and more than happy to work with all sides to make Cambridge more balanced and healthier. As we have seen, a lot of the questions that we answered tonight had to do with how do you get a balance between among pedestrians, car drivers, cyclists. How do you get a balance between affordable housing and historic preservation? So, I think I can achieve that balance fine. So I ask for your number one vote and thank you for your time.
Thank you. And Zion Sharon.
Hi, I'm Zion Sharon. I'm running for city council because I think that government should be a bottom-up approach, not top-down. I think I have a unique set of experiences that help me do this, both blue collar and white collar. My education in finance, I think, will be critical in the upcoming years with the city's financial situation very uncertain. My experience working in both distribution in a warehouse and working as a instrument operator for a land surveying company really helped me understand zoning issues and delivery issues that we have for our small businesses. It's easy to say that we're going to go bottom up, not top down, but that's clearly not what's happening. The new zoning changes allow developers to tell residents what to do instead of residents telling the city council what we should be putting on for guidelines for developers. In order to make sure that it's very clear where my priorities stand, I've taken a pledge against taking any money from political action committees, taking money from developers, making sure that my intentions are able to be purely focused on what the residents want, not outside interest groups. I'm going to ask not just for your first round vote, rank 1, but also that you go onto my website, designforcambridge.com, and that you go and if you have the ability, take a yard sign, volunteer to door knock or phone bank, or consider a donation. There's so many ways to get involved and help, but it really is critical that we take back our city council and that the residents are the people that are being listened to. And I think that the only way to do that is if I, along with several other members here today, get elected to the council. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. Greatly appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you. And the last piece of this is a question and answer period from questions that were submitted to us earlier. And Jana, if we could make these 30-second answers really short. And I have 7 for the city council candidates and 4 for the school committee candidates. I'll try to sort of alternate them. And the way this is working is I'll ask a question and somebody raise your hand and I will try to find out who raised their hand first. Okay. The first one is, if elected to the council, how would you support small independent businesses to help them thrive? This is a city council question. John. Oh, I'll try to do it better. So raise your hands because I can see it more quickly. John.
So small businesses are very close to my heart. I think that parking has been discounted as far as what they need. What they need is the support of parking, access, and the respect of the city to bring them into line, to support them. The important part of our community. They bring unique products. They bring unique flavor, and that's what I would do.
Excellent. The next one's for school committee. How do you create a more transparent process on assignments to pre-K? I saw Elizabeth.
This is for pre-K, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so first thing to know is that this is actually falls under DHSP and the early childhood education office at the city, not the school. It's done, the assignments are done in conjunction with the schools. But it is pre-K is governed by the city side. In terms of assignments, the thing that's been at issue and that we've talked a lot about lately is the income balance by school. So every school is supposed to be within plus or minus 10 percentage points of what the school-aged population looks like in Cambridge. And we got to a point where we had a couple of schools that were
Thank you.
And are
He's
how
got
to-
only 30 seconds. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay, never mind then. Ask
Okay.
everybody offline. It's important, but also ask the city council members because it also falls under them.
Thank you.
Okay, great. This is a city council question. How do we make our city more family friendly? Bathrooms, shaded playgrounds, parking, et cetera, a coherent plan. Who would like to do that one? Elizabeth?
I think one of the biggest things is actually having bigger, like more bedrooms for housing. I think that's something that I personally am struggling with right now is as our family is growing, protection or something within the ordinances to prioritize bigger units that are more suitable for families and can support families as we grow, because we do lose a lot of people right now once they get to 1 or 2 kids where they just simply cannot find suitable housing within the city to support their families.
Thank you. Okay, city council, will you fight for free Wi-Fi in all public housing buildings? Aisha?
Is that just a yes or no question? Yes.
Guess so. Yeah, there you go. That was very quick. School committee, how do we get the buses to run on time? Elizabeth, you've already answered. Judging Lee?
Okay, first of all, we only have, for many years, only one bus company bid with the contract. So we should encourage more bus companies to come, and we probably should also look into having in-house services. And so that we can directly look at what's going on, like we have better control about the punctuality and other issues. There are actually a lot more issues other than the punctual within
Great.
the school bus. Yes.
Okay, and city council, how can the council help increase enforcement? Lots of rules, regulations, yet traffic, parking, Airbnbs operate as though there are no rules. As Kathy.
With Airbnb, we're thinking about, in Boston, they actually had to sue Airbnb to get them to only list registered units. And hopefully we won't have to sue Airbnb, but we're actually putting pressure on them to require all units to be registered, which means they would have to follow the rules. And there are efforts to, we're encouraging the police to do more, to better manage parking, better enforce parking regulations.
Thank you. School committee, one day in City Hall, you are counselor, what would you change? Jane, you're smiling. I think that's you.
One day in City Hall, what would I change about our schools?
Or anything, what would you change?
Okay, I think we should have, I would start with free play, with recess and school lunch, and make sure that there is enough time for all kids at all schools.
Thank you. The next one, young Kim wrote a PhD thesis. It's narrowed down to a few points. So this one, if elected, what specific reforms will you commit to that ensure transparent budgeting, full tracking of policy costs, accurate housing projections, and accountable use of affordable housing funds? I see Louise.
Thank you very much. This is a big issue for me. I think that the city council has passed, as I said earlier, great laws. There aren't performance standards. We need to have specific goals with numbers attached to them to make sure that those policies are actually enacted. And that's what we need to make our budget accountable for. We spend a lot of money. Is it getting the job done?
Great. So I haven't been keeping track. How many more questions do I need? I think I've got the school.
I wasn't keeping track either.
Raise your hand if you haven't answered one. Zion, and Peter. Okay.
Aisha's son.
Aisha answered. Oh,
No,
yeah.
I know. Her son didn't though.
So, are you aware of plans to dig an extremely asbestos contaminated area near Russell Field that the city has green lighted? Are you concerned? So Peter or Zion? Peter.
I am aware. I've heard from voters, and I am concerned. Of course, asbestos is a Asbestos, I'm sorry, but it's a 1 week topic. I can't just talk about this within 30 seconds, but it's very bad for your lungs and it can actually cause mesothelioma, which is a fancy word that we don't really need to go into the definition right now, but it's bad and I'm concerned about that. Yes.
Thank you. And the last question, how did we go back to diesel buses, and would you support our going forward with electric ones? That's for you, Zion.
Yeah, I personally support all electric vehicles as we can. I think we have to make sure that we have the grid capacity for all the electricity that we need, and we need to make sure we're having more charging ports. But just generally speaking, I do think that electric buses are better, and also shuttles, maybe ones that fit 15 or so people instead of the big buses, are also needed to be electric.
Thank you. And I think we've got everyone. I want to thank you all hugely for running for city council or school committee. You've done a wonderful job. And for everybody elsewhere, go to vote.gov to make sure that you are registered to vote. And please vote. The city is in your hands. And I want to thank everybody who was part of this working group who put this together, and we're delighted to have all of you running, and thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.